Hi, a quick update about some of the things I'm going to be trialling this year, 2019. Instead of trialling my own fertilisers, which I did last year with the comfrey and nettle tea, I'm going to be trying some liquid seaweed concentrate. This has been recommended to me by other YouTubers, including Nick, so thank you for that. This one makes up to 300 litres, so hopefully it will improve the taste of my greens, because I didn't like the taste that comfrey tea gave to my greens. The next one I'm going to be trying is also Westland 50% extra free. I like this because the NPK values are very high. The potassium values are at 10%. They've even added some iron to it as well, and basically it's just, again, trying to get good flavours without adding that extra aftertaste. And I'm also going to be trying Doff tomato feed, because again this one has seaweed and magnesium added to it. I have got some magnesium sulfate, but I'm going to trial this on some tomatoes I'm going to be growing in grow bags, just very small tomatoes. Here we have some of the rhubarb seeds that I saved last year. This is from during the drought of 2018. I planted some of these last Wednesday, so tomorrow will be a week since I've had them in the into pots inside. If you do plant these, it's very early in February. It's recommended to plant them in March actually, but I've got mine indoors in little pots. I don't know what variety they'll be, because I think they would have cross-pollinated probably between something like Victoria and Timperley Early, so don't know what you'd call that, but if they work I'll let you know. Today I'm going to be using my 2 litre or 4.5 British pints garden pump spray. I've got some coral spot to tackle, canker to tackle, and I'm going to be using a variety of methods. I'm going to be crushing up this garlic here, which I've grown myself. I'm also going to be using some ground chamomile flowers, and they're totally ground using my pestle and mortar there. Using some bicarbonate soda and some good old whole milk. So the first mixture I'm going to try is 50-50 milk and water. So I'll trial a half a pint of milk with a half a pint of water, and I'll put a couple of teaspoons of bicarb in, so milk and bicarb, and I'll trial that out on the coral spot and some mouldy things, which include oozing sap and stuff like that. The next thing I'm going to try is something antifungal, that's chamomile, and I'll trial that on some other plants as well, soft fruit. And for canker, if I think it's more sort of bacterial, I might try some garlic and some vinegar as well. So I'm going to make my own little sprays up in the pressure sprayer, and I'll show you my problems outside. If you want your homemade sprays in the garden to stick, you could always put in a couple of drops of liquid detergent. So I put a couple of drops in at the end. I can mix them up in the spray bottle. If you're worried about things clogging up the spray head, always filter, because that's what I do. Just use an ordinary large tea strain filter. This is typical canker on a pear tree. Now, having been for a visit to some orchards, I found they don't totally lop branches off. So I'm going to try and use my spray, and there's some more canker there. So rather than just heavily pruning, because it's only a very young pear tree, I'm going to try just a spraying program to see if this gets rid of some of the canker. If that does, then I'll prune it next year. If you look closely at these raised orange bumps on this soft fruit here, okay, which is a red currant, then you can see that they are actually a growth that's burst through, and they are caused by something called coral spot, and it can live on dead wood, pruned wood. It can even get a hold on leaf scars on some trees and soft fruit. So it may not even be due to your intervention, but on dead wood certainly. Unfortunately, it will spread to living wood. So I'm going to try, obviously I'm going to remove this particular branch if it's dead, so I'll have a look at the top. If it's not dead and I don't want to prune it out, I'm going to try and see whether spraying actually kills it. Obviously I could just prune this out, but I'd like to know if my spray works. Here we have another typical infection site on a plum tree where, due to various traumas on the tree, whether it's climbing magpies or other birds, it's been scratched, and this is where I think you can spray, and it can stop the problems of oozing sap. And even though these branches are crossing here, the tree's very old and hasn't been managed properly, so for now I'll leave it and just spray it. Next year prune it. Here you can see typical oozing sap. This is definitely going to need to be sprayed. You may on this occasion try garlic and vinegar, but just on the one spot, because it may well be bacterial. Looking up, from what I can see, if it is infected, it's often infected with a bacteria such as Pseudomonas, especially on cherry trees. This is a sort of canker you get on older trees. This is a quince Sidonia, so I'm still going to spray it with the milk and bicarb mixture. Add a bit of detergent to it, because that is my best bet at the moment. I'm not going to use anything aggressive on this particular tree. It's old, and I'm not going to prune it out because it's a really old branch and it's okay. So rather than sort of just use pruning on canker, I'm going to try using some of the homemade sprays. If it's very bad canker, such as this area here, if I just bring you around it here, I'm going to try rubbing some garlic in it. But you mustn't exchange the garlic among trees, you'll just be spreading the infection. So whatever I use on it, I will bin it, okay? Because I don't want to cross-contaminate. So if whatever garlic I rub on this particular tree, canker spot, don't spread it onto another tree. This old pear tree, again, in my own garden, I've just sprayed it, so it's had the spray, and I'm going to leave it a few days. So hopefully this will clear it of some of the moss and lichen, and what I'm hoping is just to contain the canker, try and kill some of it dead. But obviously the wood will try and lignify around the wound site, because if I took the branches off that have been infected, I wouldn't have any tree left, basically. If you look where these branches are in a cherry tree, this is typically where you get the oozing sap, and from looking up online, this is often a bacterial infection. Now that's where I would use some vinegar, but just on that spot, because you're dealing with a bacteria and not a fungus. And sappy cherry trees are going to give you a poor crop, and the infection attracts all sorts of things like aphids. Whilst in my garden shed, I dusted down my old Raleigh racer. It's got 501 Reynolds, I think it says in the tubing. It's not too high spec, it's just a nice, I think it's a 12 gear racing bike that has 700C 23mm, I think they are, tyres. Could do with a new set of tyres really, couldn't I? But anyway, since I live in the area, might as well have something that was says Raleigh Nottingham on it. Nice racing bike. Well, that's it for today. So it's getting slightly chillier, well, by English standards, and I'll crack on with my spraying programme. So all I've got to do is pressurise it. Of course, once you've finished, depressurise, don't store it pressured. And then these, planted a week ago, let's see if any of my hybrid giant dormouse rhubarb seeds actually do germinate. So as you can see, this is me giving the quince Sidonia a good old going over, and also I've got an old crabapple tree. This is what I'm going for, these old canker bits, because the other thing I was going to remind you was make sure that it's not going to be raining for the next few days when you do the spraying programs, because that way the spray will have maximum effect. This one of course is 50-50 milk, needs to be pumped up again with some bicarb, a couple of drops of detergent onto the canker. So it's goodbye from me and my dusted down old retro racer bike. maybe I'll be racing around the local lanes using my reflective jacket. I was going to buy some spoke reflectors. I think that would be handy. Any other tips on cycling on British roads would be much appreciated in the comment box. It looking quite dodgy at the moment. Dangerous out there, isn't it? Anyway, bye for now, and take care.